What is going on, YouTube? This is The Last Musketeer, and welcome back to part 17 of the Arknights free-to-play progression series. So before we get into anything, I'm going to start this out with a top-op tag and talk about why I went for just the regular roll the dice in comparison to getting a guarantee like Weedy. So essentially what happened was, in the Discord somebody had been talking about Scotty, and I said something along the lines of, to be honest, I kind of forgot that operator existed, and honestly that I wouldn't mind getting her. So somebody replied to me and said, one day you'll get her from the recruitment tab. And so I decided, you know what, for the joke, I'm just going to say I'll go ahead and do that right now. So I replied to them and booted up my Arknights for the day, and of course, as fate would align, I would pull a top-op tag, but I didn't have one that guarantees Scotty. So you know what, I thought, just for meme's sake, I will actually roll just top-op by itself and, you know, see what happens. And of course, it would just so happen that I roll Scotty. And I think there's like 21 options or something along those lines in the top-op recruitment. So my odds were insane. Of course, aligning with the fact that, if you remember, I don't know if it was the last video or the one before that, where I really wanted Blaze, and I took a chance on the top-op tag there and got Blaze as well. My luck has been absolutely insane. I am either blessed or stuck somewhere deep in the Matrix. So either way, I'm going to take that as a good sign and just go ahead and roll with it. So for this vid, the content that I'm going to show you is basically the last 4 stages of the CM mode of the previous event and the one that is currently going on right now, the small mini event that we have going on. So that won't be too much of the actual stage content to show you. I didn't want to load it down with a whole lot of stuff, and since there was a decent time gap in between the last video and this one, it would be quite a lot of content to put out. Just a lot to talk about, and there's just too much going on for me to go into that much detail. So I'm just going to show you what I did in these last little ones and give a little talk to in that, and then show you some of the upgrades that are made to my account in this last week. Moving on to the second stage of the video, we have IWEX7 challenge mode, and all this one does is add some more enemies. Nothing really much of a problem here. I'm going to try to take out these invis guys as soon as possible. Ethan was an absolute MVP for this event, used basically in every stage. Arketo is also fantastic for this, just because of the sheer amount of hits she can put out, makes it a lot easier. Now, top lane did look a little rough for a second there. I thought I might actually leak because I didn't get who I wanted on bottom down fast enough, but I did borrow someone's Passenger, because I think Passenger is a fantastic unit. Doesn't get enough love most of the time, and of course, there I get Dorothy taken out because I wasn't really paying attention to the fact that she was that low. But Dorothy is also a fantastic unit for stages like this, where you need to get a lot of hits out, because the slow or the bind is very beneficial to making sure that you can lock them down long enough to actually get the hits off. So between them, Passenger, Thorns of course holding bottom lane, with Arketo doing as many hits as she's doing, I can take out most of these units fairly quickly. So at this point, I'm just trying to bait as long as I possibly can, throw out Tech Salter when I need the extra hits or the extra damage, and of course Ethan with his bind talent and the extra hits with the art damage is going to make short work of the multi-hit chalices there. So very easy one to get through with that. It was a bit sketchy at first, but moving on to the boss stage, the challenge mode of this is really just the Wisp have extra HP or extra hit count. Not that hard to deal with, and I think for one of the medals you were supposed to let a certain amount of them through. I don't know if I even cared to actually end up doing that one, so I don't know if I did get the full medal set for this one, but I didn't really care. Like I've said before, I'm not big on getting medals. Like, they're cool and all, but it's not necessarily something I'm going to go out of my way for. If I am very close to getting some, then I will probably end up just go ahead and grabbing them anyway, but not something I'm going to go out of my way for. But moving on to this, of course, Ethan planted in the middle here is a fantastic location for him to basically hit most of what is going to walk through here, because essentially all of them are going to go in through that space, so he is going to get maximum efficiency in this location and help to make sure that nothing gets by. So I borrowed a Surtur for this, basically for the boss, just so that she can stay out there long enough to do enough damage. And of course you're going to see some very bad monster placements in this bottom lane, because you can see here when the boss pops up, it will be in boss tile, so he's going to instantly get removed. Very annoying. I didn't really properly plan this one out. I think I did the CM mode on the first attempt. The regular one took a couple of times just so I could get the right rotations down and see everything, but borrowing a Surtur was pretty simple for this, and of course the true damage from monster made light work of the boss in that. And now all I had to do really though was make sure that monster was pointed in the right direction, and I couldn't even do that right. So basically it was Surtur, Text Alter, and Thorns doing most of the work for the boss, because I do point monster up here when monster's supposed to be pointed to the right. So another bad placement on my part, but like I said before, it didn't really matter. We still got it taken care of with the group that I have here. Now Dorothy would have been a good option as well for helping to slow down some of the enemies here, but honestly, I just throw her in for a little bit of help, but it's not necessarily needed. I can let these wisps pass. That is not too big of a problem. The more shield it has, yeah, the more annoying it's going to be, but it's not necessarily going to cause that big of a problem. So I let him get a little bit of a shield up here, basically because I could have done a little better of a job placing things and getting rid of those. But like I said, not too big of a deal. So the main annoying thing is when he activates this ability and you don't have any units down, of course it's going to make it to where you can't place on those. I think when I did the regular mode, I actually did mess up and lose all of my placements down there because I didn't have anybody that actually survived long enough to block that off. But of course Thorns and Surtur survive, and then Ethan, of course, the mad lad, he dodges a whole bunch and guarantees that I keep that lane up, so I can throw down Text Alter and get a little extra damage there as well. And that one was a pretty easy finish there. But I got another top op tag, and of course this time I have to go with Chin. I get a guaranteed Chin. I'm going to take it because I do want someone that has a decent amount of burst potential, and what better way than from a free top op. So I grab her. I also grab the crew skin because the crew skin is so good. One of my favorites in the game. The character is just super cool, super cute, has a great ability, and is going to be really helpful in my team. So I go ahead and start to level her up, though I did not E2 her just yet. I will be working on that. I got to get a lot more chip catalyst. I'm just not able to upkeep them, and I generally don't like farming the red cert stage. I'd rather use it on something like LMD or the event resources or some type of chip stage, because honestly I need a lot of them too. So it's just a constant grind, which is fine, you know, that gives me something to work towards each time, and I've got a lot of good units that are ready to go up to E2. They're just sitting on the cusp for the moment, but Chin is definitely one that I want to get up there as fast as possible. And I decided also to pull on this banner just for the guaranteed 5-star. Now I didn't get the one that's featured on the banner, but I did get Koro dupe, so you know, an extra 5 distinction certificates. That's not necessarily a bad thing, not what I wanted to see, but I'll take it for the time being. I'm getting decently close to getting my next guaranteed op out of the distinction shop, so it has been going up rather quickly this time, and I am excited about that. But we did take Chin to E2, and I decided not to go for the 60 for the module yet, because I'm not necessarily looking to invest that heavily into it right now. I might sometime in the foreseeable future here, but for the moment I'm just going to leave her at E2 level 40 and try to get a little bit of the masteries in there so that I can use her in not just this, but in also IS3. And I know some people had asked if I have been doing IS3 runs. Yes, I do them quite often. I normally don't put them in videos. I did have a couple that I thought about putting in, just because they were some of the most broken runs I've ever experienced. But I just decided to leave them out. But I am maxed out on the level currently. I know they just dropped some stuff with the last event, so actually not maxed anymore. I've got to go in and do some of that now. But I do quite enjoy IS3. In comparison to IS2, I do think IS2 is good, but I think the artwork, the overall feel of IS3, to me is a lot better than IS2. And honestly, I find IS3 to be, honestly, a lot more difficult. I think IS2 had its times where it would be kind of hard, but I think IS-3 just has a lot more steady requirements for certain stages, and I have lost on the first round before just from having characters that couldn't do quite enough damage fast enough when you get overrun on one of the early stages. I forget which one it is, but you just have a ton of enemies running at you, and if you don't have the right setup, you can go down pretty fast there. So it can be kind of annoying in that sense, but I do think IS-3 overall, to me, is a big improvement. But moving on to what the current event is, this is the challenge mode for DC6, and basically all it is the carts on the left side are going to give further boost to all these Sarkaz units when they are on the field. So you want to try to take them out as quick as possible, and what better way to do that than with Monster, because Monster with the true damage is going to absolutely obliterate them. Does pretty decent damage even without the skill active, so is able to take them out fairly quickly. But if you don't have the right holders, you don't have the right options, it can get rather rough to actually try to hold in these positions. But between Saria and Thorns, I had no problem getting rid of these, and of course Tex altered there to alleviate some of the stress with a little bit of her burst damage potential. And other than that, the map is pretty straightforward. Basically you're holding the two right lanes while you have someone nuking the top side to make sure that they don't get too much of a boost, because then they can overrun your squad decently easy. But Blaze behind Saria is also a fantastic hold. Blaze very hard to take down, and when she does drop below 50% the first time, I think it's 50%, it might be 30, she gets that immunity for a few seconds and then goes back up in her health. And then of course Saria makes it really hard to break through that line anyway, and Thorns is going to output a decent amount of damage to help them get rid of them regardless. So pretty easy way to hold with those three put together. And I threw Gavial down there just for a little bit of extra damage for the last one, but it was not necessary whatsoever. But moving on to the second to last stage, we do borrow a Golden Glow, because I think Golden Glow is a fantastic unit for ones like this. And mainly topside, I'm going to try to take some of the damage out with BP, and then use Tex Alter to basically break the boxes as time goes through. And as you can see, the guy on the top side, I was worried that he might end up getting rid of the civilian there, but he did not quite do enough damage. He didn't really have all that much, though I would not advise throwing a Tex Alter on top of them when they are below half health, because she gets insta-nuked. Doesn't really do anything, and I found that out the hard way. So I just basically left her there. I have Blaze building up for that infinite duration to make it a little bit easier on the top side, and I can throw Tex Alter down just to break the box and also deal a little bit of damage to the ones on top side when I need it. But Blaze is a great holder, and Gavi Alter is also a great holder for this lane as well. She is decently tanky with just her S2 on, and she's able to survive long enough for Perfumer to keep her alive and do enough damage to take him out. But what I decided to do was throw Monster in front just for the true damage and just how tanky he is. He can take a lot of hits from these bad boys, but top lane is a bit scary because, of course, without someone to tank the damage like Mudrock, I would just have to be throwing body after body just to make sure that he does not squeak through, because with the CM mode increasing his attack and HP, those guys can get real nasty real quick. But moving on to the last stage, this CM was basically buffing the boss so that his ability goes out a lot more often, and so the way I countered this to avoid having them all get nuked on the early phase is he basically uses the skill on the person that does the most damage to them. If somebody is already occupied under a space that is under the effect, then he will move it to the next one. Now, if none of the other units except for one of them, or whatever group it is, has not hit him, it will go, apparently I would assume, on the last place or the closest one. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I would have to assume that it would go on the last one place. So what I did was I put Bagpipe on this bottom lane, and she will be the last one I place before he goes out of the first phase. So whenever Milinar gets it dropped on him first, I will then have Bagpipe being covered in his skills. So this is basically going to free up my right side to survive the ending of the first phase. Basically guarantee that I'm going to have enough time to be able to pull this off. But as you can see, Milinar and Tex Alter go down on the top side. Bagpipe also goes down, but she did her job that I needed her to do in actually tanking some of the hits. So what I had to do here was I threw Chin down, not necessarily going to do anything there, but I threw her down with a little help from Tex Alter, just to make sure that I did clean him up beforehand. And then I'm going to throw Monster for the true damage. Of course, Monster is not in the skill range at the moment, but will momentarily be hit with the skill. So Monster did quite a bit of damage, half health, before finally getting taken out, but then I can activate Mastema, get the slow, get a nice little bit of damage in, and throw BP down for a little extra, because really I'm just trying to chip away at him as much as I possibly can. And I have Milinar ready, but the problem is Milinar is under the effects of it, as all of them are, except for basically Myrtle, and now Myrtle is covered. So at this point, I'm just trying to stall as long as I can for them to get rid of him, and realistically, it's basically over at that point. Once he was under half health, it really didn't take long at all to take him out. So overall, I'd say it was a fairly simple boss stage, very annoying with the skill usages, but not too hard. I think it was decently balanced in that sense. It's just really kind of an annoying boss, but he is very cool looking, and it is kind of a cool fight. And I was just playing a bunch of video game soundtracks in the background while I was doing it. I think during the video, when I was editing, before I had it muted, it was playing Dire Dire Docks. I don't know if any of you remember that absolute bop from the Super Mario 64 soundtrack, but one of my favorite all-time video game soundtracks. But as far as my roster, not too much has changed. Of course, I got Scotty and Chin added to the guard, so my guards are by far my most powerful squad. I need to finish working up Reed Alter because she is fantastic. Just something that I will get to eventually, but not too much other than that has changed. But I did get fairly lucky. And also, you may ask, why is Swire not on your greeting page? Well, basically, I'm giving her a bit of a break. I really like this crew skin, so I wanted to admire it for the time being. And then Swire will be swapped back in, of course, in the near future. But I got a ton of sanity, way too much that I don't know what to do with, so maybe it's time to farm some red certs or something. I don't know, I'll just have it grinding while I'm working on this video. But anyway, that's going to do it for me, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.